So, welcome to Mount Carmel Media, Natalie Silverman, podcast host talking all about bladder leaks. And there's some startling statistics around bladder leaks and also the kind of emotional elements that come along with that. Welcome, first of all, Natalie. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to be here. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you for joining us and talking about something that's so prevalent, isn't it? In fact, you've done some amazing research which you're going to share with us. So tell us, what does the research show in terms of bladder leaks?
Well, it's a lifestyle survey that Contrell have actually published, and they spoke to a good 500 women over 40 with bladder leaks, and a good 50% of them said, first of all, they've been living with this issue for 1 to 3 years. I mean, personally, it's been something that's been affecting my life for a good decade. And the sad thing is, a good 50% plus of these women talked about how embarrassed this made them feel. 48% saying it taken real toll on their levels of confidence. And from my personal experience, it's been such a daily consideration. I've always had to think about it. It became the most prominent to me probably a decade ago. It's when I was getting married and I was working hard with a personal trainer. And I just remember so clearly, he had me flipping a tractor tire around a football field. And I was having to run more and more during the session. And luckily I had something tied around my waist, which I always had to do when I exercised because of this being a problem. And fast forward to becoming a mum and having a child, and everybody talking about your pelvic floor, exercises even more so, which I would do. Still, the problem continued. So for me, I've been finding solutions which have mainly been using sanitary pads or using now what you can get, which is like special underwear, which is meant to protect. But I play tennis. I've always been active. I'd always have to have something around my waist. But to be totally frank, I've had to duck out of things like I can't really run for any long distance because it would just leave me in a mess. And it's sad.
Yeah, it is. And a woman who's in her 40s now, I'm having these conversations with my friends that I've grown up with. Like, girls, we need to start thinking about these things and rejigging our fitness routines and how we eat. And so I know there's people going to be listening to this going, why does this happen?
I think one of the things to be aware of is that it's a really normal thing. There's millions of women. It's like 3 million women that are affected by this. And I think there's all different reasons why. I mean, I just heard you gasp at the number. It's so many. And that's women that have kind of said that it's an issue. And I think there's some links between, being overweight and maybe consuming too much caffeine. But one thing that I think is really good to try and understand is that it's something that can kind of be helped by readjusting how the bladder sits. And that's one of the brilliant things about this device from Contrell, which is actually it's a bladder support. And that's what's had a massive impact on my day to day.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm just a bit flabbergasted again that there is a device like this, because like I said, we're having those discussions, as a community of women at the moment in their 40s going, we've got all the things coming to us. What do we need to do to prevent? But firstly, let's talk about the emotional aspect. You've touched on your own personal testimony and what happens? Why do women feel? It's obvious why we feel embarrassed. It's a bladder leak. It could be very embarrassing for us. But what impact do those emotions have on a person's life and confidence as well?
Well, I mean, the study from Contrell had talked about how women were kind of ducking out of things that they'd normally do. And over 2/3 would feel too embarrassed to talk about it, and definitely not so with their partner. I mean, I haven't really spoken about this in detail to my other half until more recently when I discovered this device, because we were at a wedding and there was all crazy dancing and I had to kind of go back to the hotel because I was in a bit of a pickle, let's say, because of all the excited dancing. And that was when I discovered Contrell. I'd Googled something that made me, I don't know, I was annoyed, I was angry, I was upset, I had to miss the party. And I'd Googled something that helped it come up. And once I tried the device and shared my absolute joy, is the only way I can say it. I was jumping on a trampoline, which I hadn't done in years. I put it on my Instagram and my husband was like, this is quite a serious thing, isn't it? And it's ironic that he saw it from me posting it on my Instagram, but it wasn't, I didn't want to have to talk about that to him. I mean, it's a bit gross when we think about wetting ourselves. And there's a lot of concern about if you are using pads, which is what I'd been doing, that, there might be an odor and it's just not very nice. I definitely found that that it just made me sad too often. It was just something I was putting up with. And with all the things that we do in our lives as women, you know, all the juggle of everyday lives, to have something like that all the time. And thinking about being caught short if you're going on your travels or if you're out and about for the day. I mean, I was in a park the other day and the public loos had a massive padlock on them. And I specifically said that park because I knew there were loos that were normally open. But luckily, I mean, I was using the device, and whilst I knew that ultimately we would have to go and find a loo somewhere, I knew I had a bit longer. I knew that I could giggle and laugh and sneeze. You can't predict when these things happen, can you? And be okay. And I think for my own kind of self-esteem, that was just a huge weight off my shoulder. I wasn't going to have to, you know, just duck out of things as I have so many times. And actually, I could just relax and be in the moment and being present, which I think we all need to do so much more, you know, when we're talking about our own well-being.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on there, Natalie. You've touched on so many points there that I can resonate with, you know. But somebody at church actually recommended a we once in a conversation with a group of women, and I was like, but you tell us about this device that you're talking about.
Sure. So what I want you to imagine is a kind of a U-shaped piece of foam that is no bigger than your thumb, and you insert it into your vagina using a reusable applicator. And if you think of how you use a tampon, it's the same motion, but this works completely differently. So what happens is the foam actually supports the bladder neck and your urethra, and it helps to stop the leaks happening. So it's something wearable, but you don't feel it. I can hold my hand up and say, you know, it's not uncomfortable. You don't think about it. What you do before you use it is you need to run it under the tap. And so the foam actually becomes even softer. And this really optimizes how it works. And one of the brilliant things about this is it doesn't have any effect on your kind of moisture levels, if that's something that you're worried about. And there's these 3 different sizes within the sizing kit. And the idea is, because there's a 1, 2, and 3, you start with the 2 and you do kind of 15, 20 minutes of kind of vigorous exercise. I was doing jumping jacks and star jumps. That's the same thing, like jumps and star jumps, and was having, you know, no leaks. It was amazing.
So it's really worked for you, hasn't it, Natalie? Tell us, where can people go to find more information about this device you're talking about?
So you can visit Contrail.com, and you can also get lots of useful information, just understanding more about bladder leakage. And there's some good diagrams at womanshealth.co.uk. And just actually looking at that and understanding what's going on with your own bladder can be really helpful. I definitely found it useful.
Fantastic. Natalie, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.